Okay, so ready to dive into a career path that has been getting a ton of buzz lately.
Yeah, let's do it.
ICT Account Manager. Have you heard about this one?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's everywhere you look these days.
It really is. And if you're out there thinking, okay, what's the deal with this job? Is it all hype or is there something real there? That's what we're going to find out today.
Love it. I'm ready to dig in.
And to help us really unpack this whole thing, we're going deep on RoleCatcher.com. Have you used this site?
For sure. I've spent some time on RoleCatcher. It's not just your average job board, it's more like, in-depth career guides. Really get into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. This isn't about scrolling through endless job postings. This is about getting that inside track. Like, what does it really take to make it in this field?
The inside scoop.
Yes. And ICT, just in case anyone's wondering, stands for Information and Communications Technology. So we're talking about the backbone of, well, pretty much everything these days.
It's funny, right? Like, when you say it that way, it's such a broad term because it is everything from, like you said, the software that we use every day, the networks, the data centers, all of that.
Everything. So naturally, you need people who can navigate this world. And that's where the ICP Account Manager comes in, right?
And I think what's interesting is, we often think about the tech side, the hard skills, but this role, this is where business meets technology.
Oh, absolutely. So before we get too deep into the weeds, in a nutshell, what does an ICT account manager do? Like if you had to explain it to, I don't know, your grandma.
Okay, so imagine this. Grandma wants a new smartphone, right? But she's overwhelmed by all the options, the tech specs, the jargon. An ICT account manager is like that tech-savvy grandchild who sits down with her, figures out what she really needs for making calls, texting the grandkids, maybe some online shopping.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
Right. So they explain it all in plain English, help her choose the right phone, set it up, and make sure she knows how to use it. They're not just selling a product, they're building a relationship, understanding her needs, and finding the perfect tech solution.
Okay, so that's a people person who also gets the tech. I like it.
Exactly. It's about bridging that gap.
So the role catcher guide, it breaks down this job in a lot of detail. And one of the things that jumped out at me was, well, let's be honest, the earning potential.
I mean, who doesn't love to talk about money? Especially when it comes to careers.
Right. It's like, okay, is this a field where I can actually make a good living? And according to this guide, the answer is potentially yes.
Yeah, it definitely can be. The earning potential can be very, very good. And I think that's a reflection of, like we were saying, how important this role is becoming in the grand scheme of things.
Because the more companies rely on technology, the more they need someone who can manage those relationships, understand the technology, and basically make sure everything runs smoothly.
Exactly. But of course, with any job that has great earning potential, there are usually some trade-offs.
Of course.
And this guide doesn't shy away from that. It actually gets into the nitty-gritty of the downsides, too.
Okay, so spill the tea. What are some of the challenges they highlight?
Well, one of the biggest ones, and they're very upfront about this, is the workload. You're often juggling multiple accounts, each with its own set of demands, deadlines, and personalities. So you have to be really good at multitasking, prioritizing, and staying organized.
Okay, so it's not for the faint of heart. You need to be able to handle the pressure.
You do. And you have to be okay with, sometimes things get a little crazy, deadlines change, clients have last-minute requests. You have to be able to roll with the punches.
That's a really good point.
And the other thing I'll say is you have to be a quick learner.
Ah, because the tech world, it doesn't stand still, does it?
It really doesn't. What's cutting edge today might be obsolete tomorrow, so you constantly have to be learning, adapting, expanding your knowledge base. And I think that's one of the things that makes this career path both exciting and challenging.
Yeah, it's like a constantly moving target.
Yes, and you have to be okay with that. Actually, you have to kind of thrive in that environment.
I love that. So it's not just about knowing the tech, it's about having that mindset of continuous learning, always being curious, always wanting to stay ahead of the curve.
Totally. And the guy actually uses the phrase continuous learning, like multiple times. It's a recurring theme throughout.
It's almost like a job requirement at this point, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like, if you're not comfortable learning new things, this might not be the career for you.
Yeah, you got to be a lifelong learner for sure.
Okay, so we've talked about the people skills, the tech skills, the ability to handle pressure and learn on the fly. But what about the actual tasks? Like, what does an ICT account manager actually do on a day-to-day basis?
Right. So let's look beyond the general description and get into the weeds a bit.
Let's do it.
So the guide has this whole section called Functions and Core Abilities. And I was expecting, the usual suspects, technical expertise, problem solving, all that good stuff.
Which are all important.
Absolutely. But then there were a few things on the list that kind of surprised me.
Oh, like what? Give me the unexpected.
Okay, so one of them was negotiation.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
So it makes sense when you think about it, right? You're often acting as a liaison between the client and your internal teams, maybe even vendors or suppliers. And part of that is negotiating contracts, pricing, timelines, deliverables. You have to be able to advocate for your client while also looking out for your company's best interests.
It's a delicate balance, for sure. Like walking a tightrope sometimes.
It can be. And then the other one that stood out to me was active listening.
Okay, so that's a skill you don't often see listed in a tech job description.
Right. But again, when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. If you're going to truly understand your client's needs, you have to be a really good listener. Not just hearing what they're saying, but really paying attention, asking clarifying questions, making sure you understand their pain points, their goals, their vision.
Because sometimes what people say they want and what they actually need are two very different things.
100%. And that's where those active listening skills come in.
It's like being a detective almost, right? You're gathering clues, piecing together information, and then using that to come up with the best possible solution.
I love that analogy, and I think it speaks to this idea that being an ICT account manager is about so much more than just knowing the tech.
It's about understanding people.
Yes. Their motivations, their frustrations, their aspirations. Because ultimately, technology is just a tool, and it's only as effective as the people using it.
Right. So you could have the most cutting-edge software in the world, but if you don't understand how your client works, how their business operates, what their goals are, it's not going to do them any good.
It's like having a Ferrari and not knowing how to drive it.
Exactly.
It's all about that human connection, building trust, and becoming a trusted advisor to your clients.
That's so interesting.
It really is. It's about seeing the bigger picture, and that's what makes this career path so interesting. It's not just about the technology, it's about the people using it and the impact it has on their lives.
Okay, so we're talking about juggling multiple accounts, building relationships, staying on top of the latest tech, and, oh yeah, negotiating contracts and resolving conflicts like a pro.
Yeah, no 2 days are the same, that's for sure.
But it sounds like if you can handle all of that, if you thrive in that kind of fast-paced, ever-evolving environment, this could be an incredibly rewarding career.
Absolutely. If you're looking for a challenge and you're passionate about technology and its potential to, really make a difference, this could be the perfect fit.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the skills, the challenges, the day-to-day realities of being an ICT account manager. But how do you actually become one? Like, what does that career path look like?
Okay, so let's dive into that next.
Let's do it. So the RoleCatcher guide, it actually breaks down the typical career path for an ICT account manager.
Yeah, they have this a really cool section called Career Stages. It walks you through the different levels, like where you start and where you can go.
I love that. Okay, so walk me through it. What's the entry point for someone who's like, okay, this sounds amazing. How do I get my foot in the door?
All right, so typically you'd be looking at entry-level roles, things like, account coordinator, sales associate, maybe even a junior account manager, depending on the company.
Got it. So starting out, it's all about learning the ropes.
Exactly. You're building your foundation, learning about the company's products and services, getting familiar with the industry as a whole. You're probably going to be doing a lot of shadowing, assisting senior account managers, maybe even handling some smaller accounts to get your feet wet.
Soaking it all in.
Exactly. It's a lot of absorbing information, asking questions, and proving yourself as a valuable member of the team. You're not going to be, closing million-dollar deals right away.
Right. You get to pay your dues.
Exactly. But it's an exciting time because you're learning so much and building those crucial skills.
So what happens as you gain more experience? How do you actually move up that career ladder?
So as you progress, as you gain more knowledge and experience, you start taking on more responsibility. So you might move from, say, an account coordinator to a full-fledged account manager handling your own portfolio of clients.
Okay, so more autonomy, more decision-making power.
Exactly. And with that comes, of course, more challenges. You're responsible for managing those client relationships, meeting your targets, maybe even mentoring some of the junior team members.
So you're not just managing accounts anymore, you're managing people too. That's a big shift.
It is a big shift. And the guide actually talks about that transition. It's like you go from being an individual contributor to more of a team leader, and that requires a whole different skill set.
Like what are some of those leadership skills that become really important at that senior level?
Well, for one, you have to be really good at delegating. You can't do everything yourself, so you need to trust your team, empower them to make decisions, and provide guidance and support along the way.
So it's that whole idea of like letting go of the reins a little bit.
Yes, exactly. And then communication becomes even more crucial. You're communicating with clients, with your team, with upper management. You're the hub, keeping everyone informed and aligned.
And probably doing a lot of conflict resolution along the way.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because whenever you have multiple people working together with different priorities and personalities, there are bound to be some bumps in the road. So being able to navigate those conflicts effectively, that's a huge part of being a successful leader.
So it's not just about knowing the tech inside and out. It's about knowing how to lead and inspire a team.
100%. And that's something that this guide really emphasizes. It's not just about the technical skills, it's about the soft skills, the emotional intelligence, the ability to build relationships and motivate people.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people, when they think about a career in tech, they immediately think about coding or data analysis or network engineering.
Totally.
But this is a different side of tech. It's about bridging that gap between the technology and the people using it.
Yes. And I think that's what makes it so appealing to a lot of people because even if you're not, a coding whiz or a tech genius, if you have strong people skills, if you're passionate about technology and its potential, there's a place for you in this field.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, or maybe I should say the elephant in the server room, interviews. Because even if you have all the skills and experience, you still have to nail that interview to land the job.
Right. And let's be honest, interviews can be nerve-wracking.
The worst,
Yeah.
no matter how many you've been on. So
Yes.
any advice from the RoleCatcher guide on how to really ace that ICT account manager interview?
Oh, tons of great tips. And one of the things they emphasize is you have to be ready for anything.
Okay, so what does that mean? Like, what kind of curveballs might they throw at you?
Well, for starters, they're probably going to ask you about your experience working with different types of technology. Like, have you worked with cloud computing, cybersecurity, data analytics? They want to see what your technical knowledge is like.
Right, because this field, it encompasses so much.
It really does. So you have to be able to speak the language,
Hmm.
show them that you understand the technology and how it's used in a business context.
Okay, so that's the tech side of things.
Yeah.
What about the behavioral questions? Because you know they're going to ask those too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Things like, tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult client. Or how do you handle pressure when you're juggling multiple deadlines? They want to see how you think on your feet, how you handle challenges, how you work under pressure.
So basically, they want to see if you can handle the heat.
Exactly. And I think one of the best pieces of advice the guide gives is to have specific examples ready to go.
Oh, that's so important.
Yeah.
Like, don't just say, oh, yeah, I'm great at problem solving.
Right. Give them a concrete example of a time you solved a problem, what you did, what the outcome was.
Stories stick with people.
They really do. So the
Mhm.
more you can illustrate your skills and experience with real-life examples, the more memorable you'll be.
Okay, that's really good advice.
And the other thing I'll say is don't be afraid to ask questions.
Oh, that's huge.
It really is. It shows that you're curious, that you're engaged, that you're really thinking about the role and how you can contribute to the team.
And I think it also shows that you're not just desperate for any job. You're being selective. You're looking for the right fit.
Yes, it shows that you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you.
Love it. Okay, so you've aced the technical questions. You've nailed the behavioral questions. You've asked some insightful questions of your own. Is there anything else you can do to really seal the deal?
This might seem like a small thing, but the guide actually recommends practicing your answers out loud.
Interesting. So it's not just about having the answers in your head. It's about being able to articulate them clearly and confidently.
Exactly, because sometimes an answer might sound great in your head, but then when you say it out loud, it just doesn't flow.
Right. Or you realize there are these awkward pauses, or you're using a lot of filler words.
Exactly. So practicing out loud, even if it's just to yourself in the mirror, can make a huge difference. And, if you're feeling really ambitious, you could even record yourself and listen back to it.
Oh my gosh, that's next level prep.
It is. But hey, whatever it takes to feel confident and prepared.
Right. Because at the end of the day, confidence is key. When you walk into that interview room, they need to see that you believe in yourself and your abilities.
Totally. And that confidence comes from preparation. The more prepared you are, the more confident you'll feel.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of showcasing your technical knowledge,
Hmm.
highlighting your soft skills, having specific examples ready to go, asking insightful questions, and practicing your answers out loud.
It's a lot, right?
It is a lot, but it's all part of putting your best foot forward. And speaking of best foot forward, I noticed something really interesting in the guide. It talks about the importance of not just highlighting your strengths, but also addressing your weaknesses.
Ooh, that's a good one. Because nobody's perfect.
Right.
We all have areas where we can improve. And acknowledging that, I think it shows a lot of self-awareness and maturity.
It does, and it also shows that you're not afraid of a challenge, that you're committed to continuous learning and growth.
Which is huge in a field like ICT, where things are constantly changing. You have to be willing to adapt and evolve.
Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, you're in an interview and they ask you, what's your biggest weakness? How do you answer that honestly without, totally sabotaging yourself?
Yeah.
So how do you answer what's your biggest weakness honestly, but without shooting yourself in the foot?
Right. Well, the guide gives a really good example. They say, instead of trying to disguise a strength as a weakness, you know, I'm too much of a perfectionist.
Classic.
Yeah.
Everyone's heard that one.
Exactly. It's about being real, but framing it positively. So they suggest something like, I'm really passionate about staying on top of the latest tech, but sometimes I catch myself going down a rabbit hole, getting lost in the details when I need to be focusing on the bigger picture for my clients.
Oh, that's good. Because it shows self-awareness, but it also highlights your dedication to continuous learning.
Exactly. You're basically saying, this is something I'm actively working on, and here's how.
It's turning that weakness into an opportunity for growth. I like it.
And I think interviewers appreciate that honesty and that willingness to learn. It shows that you're not afraid to admit when you don't know something, which is so important in a field that's constantly evolving.
It's like you were saying earlier, continuous learning. It's not optional in this field.
It really isn't. And it's not just about the technical stuff. It's about learning from your mistakes, being open to feedback, always trying to improve your skills.
It's a mindset.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think companies are looking for that in their ICT account managers. They want people who are adaptable, who are resilient, who are constantly pushing themselves to grow.
Makes sense.
Oh.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground today. We talked about the ins and outs of being an ICT account manager, the skills, the challenges, the career paths, the interview process. What a deep dive.
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone listening is feeling a lot more informed about this career path.
Yeah, it's been awesome breaking it all down. And the best part is we've got RoleCatcher to thank for all this amazing information. Their guide is seriously impressive. It goes so much deeper than just a basic job description.
It really does.
Mm.
And it's not just about the guide either. Their whole platform is designed to help people navigate their careers. They've got those interview practice tools we were talking about, salary data, professional development resources, the list goes on.
It's like having a career coach in your pocket.
It really is. So whether you're just starting out and thinking about a career in ICT, or you're already in the field and looking to level up, I highly recommend checking out RoleCatcher.com. You can find the ICT Account Manager Career Guide and a ton of other great resources on their website.
Definitely bookmark that one. It's a goldmine.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. Something to really get those brain gears turning.
Okay, get me with it.
What one emerging technology do you think will have the biggest impact on the role of an ICT account manager in the next 5 years, and why? Share your thoughts on social media. We'd love to keep this conversation going.